Should be live right now.
Boom. I'm sure that I will see it momentarily, and then we can... And there it is.
Beautiful.
Awesome. All right, let's give folks a second to hop in here, and then we'll do the deed.
Hell of a morning.
Yeah, it's nice to not be completely wrecked.
Once.
Did any of y'all trade it yesterday, or like doing anything on the margin front, I guess?
No, I mean, I'm not allowed to, right? So, I mean, basically I am allowed to, but tax-wise, it's just a nightmare in Germany right now. So margin trading is not for me anymore.
Oh, so you're basically just regulatory-wise stuck.
Yeah, I'm just trading altcoins, basically. That's all I can do. And then just trading back and forth with Bitcoin, but not much.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they introduced a new tax law where you basically you cannot get rid of like if you make losses, you cannot kind of count that against your wins. So you basically pay taxes for everything. And you can imagine how you get wrecked if you're doing that.
Yeah, of course. All right, I shared the main tweet if y'all want to retweet or whatever the weekly open account, and then we can hit it.
Kick things off. Wait, so is it live? Are we live on YouTube right now?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
good deal.
I think.
All right.
I'm just gonna pop out the chat real quick. Yep, we're live.
It's like we can only do a show if we're dumping or pumping.
Or what are we doing right now?
We're pumping.
Pumping.
Okay, then we're good.
Last week we were dumping. This week we're pumping.
Got to do something. Okay, you ready?
It's Monday, New Money Monday.
Welcome to the chat. All right. 3, 2, 1. I'm not sharing. 3, 2, 1.
Roll the tape.
Hello and welcome to Weekly Open. I'm Ledger, here with my friends Luke, Josh, Cred, Don. Hey everybody. Before we get to that, we need to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Blockfolio. Go to weeklyopen.com/Blockfolio. Try it today. You can trade with 0 fees. Swap directly from one asset to the other. It's the easiest way to trade. All you have to do is go to weeklyopen.com/Blockfolio and you're good to go. It's the same portfolio tracking you've always had, and now trading too, powered by FTX. Thanks to the team at Blockfolio. What's up, guys?
Whew.
Points up. I'm going to always make that joke.
You'd think we'd be more excited. We had a big bounce on the place where we needed to bounce. It was bounce or die. We were on the ropes.
That's where we got to start, right? Freaking Keijin gang wins again.
I don't know why. I'm just thankful it works. I don't know why it works, but I'm just thankful.
Is it really bounce or die though? It's like it just feels like we can't even die this cycle. There's some Michael Saylor comes in to save us every single time.
That scares me. If you say we can't die.
Well, if we're trading,
Look,
just the technicals, I'm talking 30s if we didn't bounce at 40, 41, 42, 43 zone. So I'll take it. I think everybody wanted lower and didn't get it. I certainly had bids in the 40, 41 based on the previous all-time high. But hey, we're up 15% from the bottom. That's something, definitely.
From a levels perspective, what's y'all's full trend recapture type of area? This was obviously the bounce, but from my point of view, it seems like we got to clear maybe 51 or so to really have proper continuation.
Agreed. 52 is mine, so same area.
On the whole, though, top to bottom was, a very reasonable, but honestly not that huge. I called it the quiet correction because it was about 25-26%. It just didn't feel that extreme on Bitcoin alone. I think what made it feel extreme is if you were trading alts, you just got obliterated.
Yep. That leverage flush, every single time it happens, feels so brutal.
Yeah, and it's particularly, the same as we've talked about before. People, when they're on like 20x plus and stuff, they're just getting smoked. I at 25% though, I mean, if you longed to the very top, you would have lost your account really at anything 4x or above. So
True,
it was
confirm.
But it was a full sweep. It was a full sweep of leverage.
Yeah, a lot closed out at the lows too, right? So we had a bunch of spot buying coming because we had a bunch of spot selling, right, into that drop.
Yep.
And then we had a bunch of spot buying come in and leverage close out right at the lows, basically.
Yeah. So it was the same themes that happened again to declare the bottom. Funding basically went flat, and some stuff even started paying longs, like on the altcoin landscape,
Yep.
at least temporarily. And then the other thing was the Coinbase premium showed up, where derivatives were trading underneath Coinbase. And MicroStrategy bought the dip, which is, man, they just keep getting more and more leveraged. And their average price now is like $25,000. Did y'all see that this morning?
Yep.
I feel like MicroStrategy's break even is going to be the bottom of the next bear market.
When you buy every week, you're going to buy dips fairly often, right? So,
Yeah, you basically become the moving average.
yeah. I'll release some alpha from a chat that I might get in trouble for releasing alpha from. But if we look at the rougher investments group who actually sold their BTC. So they bought, what was it, 750 million or something, and they sold a bunch and basically kept their initial basis. We may start to see that on the non-sailors of the world, in that the corporations will buy the BTC, have it run up, and then just sell it risk-free, whatever, and then just forget about it permanently, stuff like that.
So if they sell half on a double and then they're in.
Right, and then it's just on their balance sheet forever, and it is what it is. But that's gonna be some turbulent price action, let alone.
So is there
headlines.
a number? Is there a number then of what you said, like the kind of average corporate entry? Because that's a fascinating metric to me.
We can look at the Bitcoin Treasuries site, which has a list of the companies, right?
Yeah, so that's how much Bitcoin they have. Does it have their average entry or?
It has their
price?
basis. It has all that stuff. For instance, if Tesla sells half on a double and then and then lets it ride forever, that would cause quite a significant pause in price, I think.
I'm not going to be too upset though with 90K Bitcoin. Like, they can sell half, whatever. I'm going to be pretty pleased by that point.
Yeah, I'd like to know the mindset of the corporations. Like, what's your strategy? Like, are we holding because it's fashionable to do so? Are we just trying to make money here? Like, what's going on?
I guess the question is, what kind of event would make them actually want to sell? Because clearly, Michael Saylor isn't done buying. I used to think what price are they not interested in buying, but now I'm more curious. What has to happen for these guys to want to sell, or Tesla to want to sell? I think it has to be some kind of catalyst, some kind of regulatory thing, versus a price decline, right? If price drops, I don't think this is something you get in and you're like, oh shit, I was wrong, let's bounce. I think you got in and you're in for 3 to 5 years. I think they made that decision as this is our bet for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's different too between, I'd rather have corporate treasuries holding Bitcoin than say funds, because funds could have to sell on a liquidity event, whereas a liquidity event for a corporation is they run out of money as a corporation.
Sure.
But a liquidity event for a fund or a hedge fund or somebody like that is they just have to sell to cover other stuff. And that's what happened with COVID, right? They're different. I feel like the corporate treasuries end up with stronger hands because of that.
Yeah, I'd agree. Something else. So really, all we're talking about forever and always is supply and demand. And if supply gets sucked up in some way or shape or form, it should be bullish. If it gets released, it should be bearish. The Mt. Gox stuff is the same. That's continued to loom. I saw something last week about, I don't even know. It's just releasing nonstop every month. It's we're thinking about doing this thing. Do we approve it? but they're not giving anybody anything yet. So there's that in the background. There's this GBTC stuff, which I feel like I was beating a dead horse, talking to people over the past couple of days, talking about the GBTC premium. The concern here is that if people are doing the cash and carry trade and they're long on margin and the premium goes negative, then they're going to have to close those margin longs, basically. That's a concern.
I think what was fascinating about that one too is the awareness that so many people were doing that trade on leverage, like you say, because it sounds like, a 3-4% discount on GBTC is not that big of a deal. But if you're doing it at 10x levered or something because it was a safe trade, like there was constantly the arbitrage, then it's a little scarier. It's still at a 1% discount. This seems, somebody called this the inverse Melvin. Did y'all hear that? Like someone's trying to trap someone that's over levered. Do y'all think that's possible here?
I hope so. I want to get a deal. Like I want to get a discount basically, if I can. So I mean, I'd love for GBTC to get like super cheap and then just buy a bunch. I don't want to do it at 1% though. I would have to get bigger.
Yeah, so. I already increased my allocations to these purely because they were down below like 5%. So the fact that they're now at a discount is kind of amazing to me.
Yeah. With regards to the generally speaking, companies are kind of selling to get out of their risk and just write it risk free. I've heard a lot about that too in the last few days, where people and where in general like the mood is more like, okay, we've doubled our money, we've more than doubled our money, we're gonna kind of lock some in and then just keep it forever. So I can kind of confirm that. I've heard that like a couple times from different sources now.
Interesting.
People are also talking about exchange reserves, which continue to dwindle. ETH continues to decline. Link had a 5 million drop in total exchange reserves over the past week. BTC continues to cruise at lows, and it's hard to be mega bearish on all this news collectively. We had China bans Bitcoin news today or yesterday that didn't do anything to price thus far.
I didn't even know. I was
going to say, I didn't even know that news. It got drowned out by the bullish news.
I'll pull up this Wu blockchain account is really good at China stuff. So China's Inner Mongolia is demanding that all cryptocurrency mining projects be cleared by the end of April due to China's commitment to the world's carbon emission target in 2020. So they're trying to clean up their mining stuff, which maybe people who are against the whole energy argument are going to be happy with. I don't know.
So we'll have to monitor hash rate in the coming 2 months.
Yeah.
Cred, what's on your mind, man?
I just ate like 50 blueberries. I feel really good. But market-wise, yeah, I don't. I'm gonna let the smart people take over the smart topics. I've been enjoying listening to your points. For me, it's really not a whole lot that's changed, so to speak. I agree with Josh's earlier conclusion that like the market bounced where it really had to bounce. So I'm not fading this unless something really crazy happens. And yeah, happy to sit and watch where this thing goes for the time being. As boring as that is, that's sort of it. If I get some sort of intraday red candle scary pullback type thing, I'll try to get involved on the leverage side of things. But otherwise, it's more of a air of relief that from the available evidence, the nuke level didn't get nuked. So that's always welcome in my books.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, unshare. I want to share my screen.
Okay, I was just going to say real quick on the leverage stuff. I'm not looking to enter leverage until we're back above the 4-hour cloud, which, if you just zoom out, has been pretty good at dip calling, dip buying, long reentry type stuff. I said last week that if we get an inverted head and shoulders type thing here, which the cloud loves to have confluence with reversal patterns. So, whatever that looks like. I'd be happy with a 4-hour Kumo breakout on BTC there. I'd be happy with an inverted head and shoulders there. ETHUSD is very much the same with a level around 16, like 1666, because why not? But that could also paint just a nice and easy inverted head and shoulders. So yeah, I think it looks fine. I'm not like ready to jump in full bore just yet.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I wanted to see was some degree of just higher high. And we broke a diagonal, whatever. I guess you could say this was our higher high, like over 47.5 or so. I'm still like we talked about over 51.2. I'm a little concerned though that we're not just gonna go make new highs right away. I have a lot of crap on my chart. And on the downside, I think what I found encouraging was that if you went properly back to the prior levels, we would have seen like 41 as a prior daily high. And then the weekly close, do y'all remember exactly what that number was? Maybe like 40K? It was somewhere in this range. So like it still got bought up pretty quickly relative to where it could have gone. Couple of things that I like to highlight in trending markets. I know, I'm primarily the person that likes the 20 SMA. What's usually been a good confirmation of continuation is flipping that daily, which is telling me like this is an okay place to risk off. Like if you just want to wait, and certainly it's not where I'm going to want to enter leverage positions. So this is a lot of confluence, which kind of makes me nervous sometimes when there's a lot of confluence for like risking off. And then there's like a $1,000 range before you would get back in, because that one of the things that could do is really encourage the deeper sell off and give you another like fear-based kind of lower push. So it's just something I'm trying to watch. And then in the higher time frames, like as much of we've had these two dips, right? 30%, 25%. And yet our like weekly moving averages are still just not at all caught up. So I feel like we might just struggle to make significant higher highs all the way through the spring until some of these moving averages can start to catch up. And I could imagine a world where we end up with a lot of consolidation in March and April. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not very much fun to trade, and then it might suck liquidity out of the ecosystem more broadly. That's all I got.
I mean, I'm looking at that chart. Might be done. I'm looking at that chart. I just don't like the chart's vertical still. Like Bitcoin right now isn't fun to trade like even if we get that first pullback, I'm kind of still waiting to see what the reaction is right after the pullback. Like as I look at this dip and potentially the bounce back, this is the first day of it to start the week. I'm more curious, like, do DeFi plays keep bouncing back as a higher beta bounce? Like they have the entire run. Did they keep doing it? Can Sushi just keep crushing new highs as Bitcoin bounces? Like I think those are the only swings I'm even interested in, because you can at least kind of define your risk. You can say, look, they took out a high, things like that. Bitcoin's still just vertical. Like what do you do other than hold?
And honestly, I think we need to see those, because if we get weak bounces on some of the blue chip type stuff, I think that's going to be indicative that the whole market is, more ready for some contraction than it is for broader expansion.
Yep.
Whereas if those bounce hard, it's a sign that there's still a lot of money flowing in that wants these dips, yada yada.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Don?
I can actually screen share my thing.
Please do. I need some quality Don charts. I didn't clean my chart up before I shared it, so I couldn't draw on it because there's too much crap already there.
Show us the way.
So I think I'm sharing the right screen because I've got a couple open, but it's pretty much, I'm looking at the same thing as you are, just from a different perspective. So you have like the moving average, which was basically somewhere here.
Yeah.
And that's exactly in this area. So I said last week, or like a few days ago, that after we broke this was the area, if you wanted to short, if you wanted to kind of take risk off, that this was the area to do it. And that worked out pretty nicely, and that sold off. And I think now it's this one. And if we can reclaim that, I don't think you want to be like risk off anymore, even though we have this resistance up here still. Excuse my arrow, that's super ugly. But yeah, I think if this kind of gets reclaimed, I don't think the case stands that this isn't going to do much anymore. It's already been tested. I think at that point, we're probably just going to squeeze. So
do you think we break the highs though? Like, or do you think we'll have a lot of selling at 57 again? And that
I think we're going to have selling here basically. And
selling now, but if we breach it, like, do you think
I could see it go sideways in here, like do something like do something like this, where it goes and does something like that, and then probably goes higher. I think if we can kind of break this, I think it would go higher. If we can't, I would remain cautious. I think this is the best place. Like, this was the place to risk off, the kind of best risk reward that you were ever gonna get, and this is the second one. And if that breaks, I think this breaks too, and then it just messes it up. So this is the one to watch, I think, the current one. And then if that breaks, it's either gonna consolidate or go up, in which case you don't want to be necessarily betting on downside, right? Because consolidation here would be constructive in my opinion, because if you're looking at this, you need some kind of form sideways. Yeah, I think. So yeah, that's what I'm watching. It's pretty much the same thing, same area. And I agree with the point that the confidence is kind of scary there. I hope we can kind of break it and then go back to mooning. But at this current point, I'd be surprised if it just broke. If anything, and this is something that we've had in the last few dips that we've had, I could see it like dip a little bit and then no follow through on that. And then I think it could go. I'd be surprised if it just broke it on this try, but it's Bitcoin, right? And it's Micah's, it's Sailor buying again. It's just a tiny bit that he bought this time, but who knows, right? Maybe it's enough.
We're getting trolled in the chat by saying that it could go up, down, or consolidate. I think all of us
is true.
None of us are screaming for like new highs though, right? Like, because we're at resistance. We're all agreeing. We believe we are at resistance. We're not like screaming for brand new lows, but we're not screaming for all-time highs either. So I feel like we're all kind of in the consolidate gang. It's
just not an exciting spot to place a trade for me. Like, I hold Bitcoin and that's it. It's just not a chart that like screams I should be doing something. It's going straight up. We still haven't like taken a break. Like we had the weekend and I guess the latter half of last week where it felt like we were dumping, but as you said, that was alts. Like that's where the pain came from. If it was just Bitcoin down, that 5 or another 10%, I don't think anyone would have blinked.
I think a big component of this too is we've been tying with legacy pretty strongly. Like the S&P is up more than 2% today. IWM's up more than 3%. At the same time, the Dixie's flat. There was an OPEX rollover. And then we saw the volatility last week come on the tail end of that. And unfortunately, we're more and more tied to legacy, and there's nothing that we can really do about that. Yields was also a huge play, and they've come down off of the spikes that they had, especially the 30-year, really spiked up hard and then came down a bit. And that's where Bitcoin started recovering. So, yeah, I'm like really, really interested in what's going to happen with legacy. But the dip buyers continue to win in legacy markets over and over and over and over again. And I guess I'm going to need some proof that like legacy can't keep going higher.
Well, legacy is just one rolling crisis of the week, like we talked about last week on Ledger. It's like the yield stuff. It's like the sky's falling, stuff is moving off the rails, blah 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 blah, and then here we are Monday, and it's like, oh, everything's fine. I don't know what the VIX is today, but that's something else to look at. We had a full moon, by the way. Not that. Do you guys know about the moon phases?
Oh God.
Marin has entered the chat.
I don't ascribe to any of this or trade it. I just am a casual observer, and I find it interesting and fascinating. I think it was more of a open interest rollover situation than anything to do with moon phases. But it's always funny when we have a full moon, people are like tagging me on Twitter. And, where's your moon chart? Blah blah blah. So I don't know. It's fun to watch, right?
It is. I can't ever take it seriously.
I can't do it.
There is a trade. Are y'all familiar with the steepener trade? It's a popular. I keep doing this. I'm sorry. It's a popular thing that people like to watch in Legacy, and this has been part of the yield conversation. So what I've got here is a yield trade between, I think this is 2s and 10s. And as these widen, it basically means that the gap between the 2-year and the 10-year is getting bigger. So people trade that widening curve, and it's called the steepener trade. And one of the things that it can be indicative of is where the Fed is controlling the low end of the curve. So like, when they make adjustments or keep rates low, it's like on the near term yields. But if the 30-year starts kind of acting of its own accord, for instance, like expecting inflation or something, that can be what puts the trimmers in the market. And there's some stuff that you can look at over time this can end up causing you some degree of worry. Like if you look at what are the last times that it went from real narrow to real wide, they were kind of recessionary periods. So it's just something to watch, and it's part of what got people freaked out is that 30-year doing things. But when you put that on, like, what did it actually do, the 30-year going to 220 was rates that were considered basement bottom type stuff in 2016 through 2019, and then COVID blew the floor out. So in some ways, it's just maybe this is a bearish retest, but you have to watch them because these end up having impacts. Most people in crypto don't know about yields and the impacts that could mean. If the 30-year is rising, though, then growth companies, for example, have to really adjust their expectations. So it's partly what plays into like value versus growth, because if the 30-year goes up, growth companies aren't supposed to make money for a long time. So it puts pressure on them when those yields go up because it makes it more competitive to just have a bond yield relative to holding a growth company. So just some random word vomit of legacy stuff that I thought I'd spit out there because it ends up being impactful on crypto as we become more correlated.
You think
it's so weird how every chart looks like Bitcoin when it broke to like 4K and then Mega Moon. Like that just reminded me, oh yeah, looks relatively similar.
Yeah, and everything does. Like the correlations across the board are like that. If you look at oil, it's the same way. Like oil's back to 62, which is even higher than pre-COVID levels. And I mean, is there really that much demand for oil, or is it just an inflation narrative again? So a lot of macro people that I follow, they think that we're just due for some longer term mean reversion for stuff to chill a while. And I think that could coincide with consolidation or even selling pressure on Bitcoin.
I was looking at Dixie last night, and on the daily cloud, it looks like it's waiting for a pretty good bullish reversal attempt.
Yeah, I have no conviction in the dollar, and I feel
I agree. Like the tech is divorced from the fundamentals here. Do you guys think the U.S. stimulus is priced in at all in the Dixie?
I don't know. That might be the narrative for the market moving today, but the dollar didn't change much so far. Like the dollar's flat, but stocks are up, which.
I just look at this in a vacuum on anything, and I'm thinking, okay, we're definitely going to 92. I'm waiting into like April, May, Q2 for a bullish reversal on this. Like, if this goes to 96, if we're looking at this on like the weekly, maybe the weekly, if I see this in a vacuum, I'm thinking, Jesus, this is definitely going to reverse. This is definitely oversold. This is a TKC clamp. We're going to 96. That's where my money would be, not on a short. This looks too hot to short.
See, I think everything, unless you get a proven break, maybe above like 92, like a proper breach of where it fell out before, then I think it's all just consolidation at those 2018 levels before we go down. The Dixie is relative to other currencies, right? So it's like the dollar relative to other currencies.
Yep.
And that's what's hard is, what's the situation in Europe, guys? Like, are y'all printing money like we are? Or what?
Everyone's printing money.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the ECB do, like, they tweeted something to the tune, like, Cred, did you see the tweet? I can't remember.
I don't know what you're referring to, unfortunately.
That was like this tweet from the European Central Bank, basically saying they're gonna keep printing, like with like a rhyme to it until the situation improves. So yes, yes.
Okay. So y'all are everyone's just gonna print.
Yeah.
What's unfortunate for that with regard to the Dixie is people watch the Dixie a lot, but it's the dollar relative to other stuff. So it might be worth watching like USD Euro or some of those for better hints. Or versus the yuan.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that looks like it's ready to bounce hard. USD CNY. It looks more oversold now than it did in 2017, 2018. And when this goes up, we're bullish, right? Yeah, because people were freaking out when it broke 7, which was way up here somewhere. I remember that trade that day. That was a big narrative. So if this reverses, you're going to get the capital outflow narrative from China again. And that should be rather bullish for crypto. This is also fixed by the PBOC, so.
Yeah, I have a hard time paying attention to that chart just because it's so controlled. I want to pull it back to crypto. The macro stuff, we're all a little bit trying to punch above our weight. But the ETH gas station stuff, are y'all paying attention to this? It seems like the DeFi top and bottom is almost directly correlated with where gas just got too out of control.
It's insane. So I think my favorite theory on this, I had Nick Carter on my show a while back to explain it. I need to talk to him again. He came up with this idea of it happened with Bitcoin, but like price didn't necessarily correlate with demand for block space and transactions, and that leading to a price cycle. But with ETH, it did happen, and he like called it last time fees got this expensive, and now we've gone through an entire cycle of the best DeFi trades were October, November before things kicked off. Now gas got super expensive in the past month, and we've obviously had just kind of a serious pullback in DeFi. It is crazy, like how much this I think matters for how attractive that DeFi trade you're going to ape into on Uniswap is. Like I think more and more people are going to be looking at this, the reset of gas, and when it gets overextended, like that's going to be a giant indicator moving forward, I think.
There was actually a Vitalik kind of saved it.
Yeah,
did
I saw
see that.
Yeah.
So there's a protocol change which has enabled like the Qi gas token. So for people that don't know what those were used for, it allowed people to essentially mint Qi, which is it's like a gas hedge when gas was relatively cheap, and then they could use it when gas was expensive. So especially if you're in arbitrage and gas is like 500 Gwei, well, you were buying Qi when it was much cheaper on the network to mint it, and then you're using it when it's much more expensive. So for you running your arbitrage, doing whatever, it's cheaper than the average normie to go participate in that trade. Well, they essentially took that out, which it turns out that was what was increasing the floor for gas was people minting crap loads of Qi at any point where it was like relatively down. So we were constantly filling the block space with minting gas tokens and stuff to use when it's just too extreme. And as soon as they said they were going to disable that this summer, people just stopped minting the Qi because they did, like it won't have any use as they remove that capacity. And for the first time in months, gas went below 100 Gwei each, and essentially made it possible to transact on chain again. And I'm really curious if that's going to maintain and what happens there, because that was the bottom in DeFi.
I think it's uber bullish. Well, I mean, we'll see if it lasts, but if it does, if this trend continues, that's a good sign. Even if it takes a month, 2 months, 3 months, it's like these are the, going back the past couple DeFi cycles, these are when you want to get your trades in, when you want to get your longs in.
Yeah, and I wonder if more stuff will come out that'll essentially enable the Ethereum landscape to scale again. Like Uniswap 3.0 is surely going to have scaling stuff in the mix, if not outright L2 support with 3.0. Do y'all know the details there? I
don't.
Me neither.
I think they've kept it pretty low key in terms of what all will be included in 3.0. I think no matter what, there'll be some gas efficiency stuff included. If they try to push people to get liquidity on layer 2, it'll be hugely bullish for Ethereum. In my mind, it'll ease the gas wars immensely, and I think people will pretty quickly adopt layer 2 for pushing liquidity over. It will probably also create some bifurcation though between layer 1, layer 2 liquidity, and who knows? There'll probably just be new tokens invented to bridge layer 1 and layer 2 liquidity, and it'll be another chance for some token to moon. But there's probably a lot of challenges involved too.
I guarantee there will be new tokens. That's one consistent thing.
There is always new tokens in the ETH landscape.
Does the amount of NFT garbage concern any of you guys at all? Because the whole Logan Paul minting, I saw Ledger tweeting about this too.
His hand
minting, all sorts of stuff.
No, it wasn't just that he minted stuff. He then minted screenshots of the stream where he opened the packs. So it's basically pictures of his hand from a GoPro. So his hand looks gigantic on this fisheye lens, and they sold for like $15,000.
Yeah.
He's just a grifter. Screw him. Screw you, Logan Paul. Hey, screw you.
Hey, people are buying.
It's to the point where I have people asking about NBA Top Shots in like random Call of Duty discords and stuff. Like people who don't know that I do what I do, but they're like discussing NBA Top Shots.
Yeah, Top Shots is huge, and one of the things I heard about that though is like the top players are not even talking about Top Shots yet. So their point was it's like the middling players that are even like sharing it and buying them and talking about it. They think some people that I've talked to about it that are smarter in the NFT space than me, they don't think Top Shots and that kind of stuff will top until it's like LeBron James is talking about it. Then that's the top, And actually, I think those are okay. It's the ones that are just completely absurd that scare me a little. And then the overall pricing, like Blau or whatever sold the rights to his music for $11.5 million yesterday.
Yeah.
And like there was a leaderboard for whales to be able to highlight like how much they were bidding. So I heard it was just kind of like a contest between like who's the bigger badass. I don't know. I think there might be some bubbliness on the valuation of NFTs, but I actually think we're relatively early in the adoption of NFTs, like being put towards innovative use cases, because I think art is just a good example use case. I think NFTs will end up being where a lot of like X on the blockchain type stuff ends up living because it makes more sense.
I think in general with the NFT stuff, there's this weird situation where garbage is getting bought as well as good stuff. So I think it's just going to be, the garbage is just not going to be worth anything the moment we kind of get a pullback or in general the market calms down a little. But I would be surprised, like for example, CL, good friend of mine that probably everyone knows, is very deep into the Unisocks, right? And I don't think that's going to necessarily just disappear. I think those kind of things can stay around for a while. Those are the interesting things. And then all this garbage, Logan Paul, whatever, I think that's just going to go to zero. So that's kind of like the expensive stuff that is already expensive is probably just going to get more expensive. And then the cheap stuff that no one really cares about is just probably going to go to zero. And it's kind of like when you see all these art pieces sold for 1 ETH or whatever, and these people try to kind of make more with it. I think it's most of the time it's probably just going to end up as zero.
I've never seen a greater example of greater fool theory playing out than with NFTs. Just the stuff I just don't understand. So I can't really talk about it, but intelligently, it's so bizarre that people are buying these like pixel art CryptoPunks, the things that are like worth money somehow. I don't know.
I think punks will have some staying power because they're more. It's not like what's the old game, the card game that everybody played?
Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it's Magic the Gathering, and even
if it has utility, I can understand it. If it's a CS:GO skin, if it's Magic the Gathering, I can understand all that stuff. If it's just
but even the ones,
thing.
Even the old cards that were just kind of art driven, like a collector type card or something. I feel like punks have a community, and if you can create a community, then you end up with some floor based on the network effects. Now, does it make sense for that to be 30 ETH? No.
Right.
But
that's the biggest mystery is like, why is this stuff 10xing in a week, right? Like
there's obviously some degree of speculation that's driving that. But I do think that they'll still have staying power even if the floor comes down. Another one that's worth watching is Beeple's B20 index. So this was one person that sneakily took every piece of an auction. So it's 20 Beeple pieces. And this is also having some staying power, and it really started mooning off of $2 when the Christie's auction announcement came. So I want to watch, like, how do the top artists stuff, how do they start trading? Are more things going to end up indexed, whether it be on, private people who turn it into a token, turn a collection into a token, or through something like NFTX, which is the way liquidity is turning up for stuff like the hash masks index. That's not it.
There's a really interesting index trade as well for punks. I don't know if you saw it. It was on CMS's page. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen the one for punks, but this is the one for hash masks. And like you can see, the floor is rising on these. And if you're looking at it in a vacuum, like this makes me kind of bullish on hash masks. And I think bringing the liquidity to it is fascinating. Crypto Carp Chad in the chat says this is just all money laundering. I'm not saying it's not, but there's more than money launderers involved. A lot of it is speculation as well.
So would that I'm really kind of want someone watching right now or listening to do this. CMS shared it. There's a punk index that someone created, and you can mint shares by depositing a punk. So if you have a zombie punk, there's a zombie punk index. You can deposit one of the zombie punks, and then when you want to withdraw, you can redeem your, whatever your share is, and they give you one of the random zombie punks that are in there. And so there's a zombie punk that's in the index that's worth like $420,000. And there's some zombie punks that are trading at like 40K. So wow. there is a trade where if you can buy a zombie punk that you think is valued at 40K, get one of these index tokens and then redeem it. It's like you're kind of just keep doing it over and over until you get that, $420,000 zombie punk. And that was shared last night. I haven't seen too many people talking about that, but I imagine that's going to drive up that index. I mean, it's just all weird trades. Like I don't fully get the value, but I think there's going to be a ton of opportunities to make money. I haven't played the NFT game at all. But
there's I was just talking, I'm being interviewed for a guy that's writing an article about all this, and I'll share my screen one more time. You can look at the galleries. Here's the Punk Basic Gallery. You can look at the galleries for what's in the indexes. So like what you're saying, if someone put one that's like super valuable in there, but then the floor price is much more reasonable, you could try to go in there and redeem one
exactly
to get the valuable one. I'm going to be curious if that actually works for people. What I noticed on the if I go back to the hash mask one, I was actually a little surprised by the fact that there were some masks that looked at least slightly more valuable than the total baseline. So for instance, I just passed it. Yeah, this one. I don't know if this is more valuable, but it's like, okay, it's pixelated and they're wearing a gas mask and it's a female. So maybe it's like half an ETH or 1 ETH more valuable than the floor. if you went in and there's 800 in here, if you could relatively liquidly, if that's a word, buy like 10 or 20, you might be able to get lucky and pull some out.
Try to swap,
slightly better features, and then remint the ones that are certainly like the floor, and do it over and over again, and you end up with like a little arb trade in there that's
exactly
even not trying to hit the lottery, get the one that's worth like 400 ETH, but you might end up netting, I don't know, maybe like 10 ETH or something. That's actually a pretty productive use of time. Like making 10 ETH is a lot of money. That's like a month's salary with a great job, you know? So I feel like there's definitely some arb in here that's due to it being early markets.
Yeah, if you have them anyway, right? I think like if people don't have them and jump in to ARB something I always see when people try to ARB something that they don't have, and then jump in and then get stuck in it. It's basically like the GPTC thing, where it's like you see, oh, this is hot, I want to be in that, and then you start doing it, and then it suddenly disappears, and you're stuck with something that you actually don't want to have. And that can turn ugly really fast. But I like the idea, yeah.
Yeah, and you can remint the ones that you don't want. You know, so when you redeem 10 or 20, you remint the ones that you feel like don't have extra value and repeat. And you're paying, I say only the fees. Like it's probably a lot.
$500.
Yeah, but it could, if you do it when fees are low and you time it right or whatever, it could end up working out pretty well for people. So. I love the idea. I love the idea of bringing liquidity to NFTs. I think it's one of the coolest things in crypto right now that we probably don't understand well enough.
Yeah, it's such a weird market. I mean, I don't like the art market in general, right? So for me, it's like, okay, this like I don't understand the normal art market, so this makes even less sense to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I appreciate that people kind of make money with their art, which you cannot really do anywhere else, right? You don't, as long as you're not like one of the biggest artists, you don't really make much money. So I mean, I like that that's trending in a different direction with stuff like this.
All right, we've got just 15 minutes left. Why don't Cred, if you're ready to go, why don't we do the top thing you want to watch this week?
Yeah, sure. So let me think of it first. Processing. Yeah, okay. This might make sense. If I'm lucky, I'll screen share. Oh God. Okay, I'm gonna pray this is the right screen. Here goes nothing. Yeah, that looks correct, right?
Yep.
Okay. I think seasonally, March tends to suck for Bitcoin, unless I just completely misread some of the stuff that was floating around Twitter. Which is understandable. So being like conservative, cautious, whatever is understandable. What I think might be helpful, given where it's landed, is just to map out this monthly open type thing, which is around 45, 200, etc. And if you look at the daily time frame, it seems to land around this, well, the base that we built before the most recent leg in like the mid 40,000s, basically. So if March is going to be a shitty month, and this is the mean reversion, risk off, resistance, etc., that was discussed earlier, you'd obviously expect, especially on lower timeframes, for price to eventually trade below and find resistance, etc., at the monthly open, right? So that's probably something to. I don't always use like monthly, weekly open, daily open as default. Only when it makes sense contextually to do so. And I think this is one of those months or periods of time where it does make sense contextually to do so. So you've got high time frame level there at 44s, and also you've got an extra reason statistically to be cautious of this month as well. And I'm not a fan of, like, I don't know what's going to happen right here. You can even just see by my chart, I've got like nothing in this area. But if the unwinding March type of argument is going to have any weight, you probably get some sort of reasonable signal around the monthly open, given how much stuff has landed there. That's probably the best I can do today.
So that's 45.2?
Yeah, roughly around there.
I kind of like that as a potential push back down. Like you could imagine people freaking out as like you're sinking sub 47 and they're like, oh, we're going to 35. and then like boom, there's your weekly.
We had the
your
same with the
monthly.
yearly open, right? When price
Yeah.
was nuking from 30s, yearly open and landed just under 30K, and it literally bottomed there. So there are periods of time in which it makes sense, and it doesn't hurt to have that there, I don't think.
Yeah. Don, what are you looking at?
I think the most interesting thing to look at right now is basically what we talked about earlier. I want to see how this daily closes. We're getting rejected from there. If we do, I would expect it to go lower. Like I said earlier, if we close above, then I wouldn't want to be risk off anymore. And with regards to the altcoins, I mean, it's kind of rough, right? I mean, looking at ETH, that's been like what I've been looking at, and I'm just kind of struggling with, how bad it's been. We've kind of finally landed at support-ish, but like, this is just rough. So I want to see that kind of start closing back above resistances. We talked about this last time too.
Yep.
We said we want to see it show some strength rather than just buy any kind of dip. And that's played out pretty well. So we are at support, but I don't want to get involved there. I want to get in on strength. So anything up there. But on the lower time frames, I don't really have anything for anything else, just based on the fact that Bitcoin's really, really at resistance. And when Bitcoin's at resistance, it's kind of getting too deep into the other ones. It's a little bit dangerous.
Makes me sad.
Yeah,
What?
I'll just
It
add,
does-
I'd watch 50K psychological resistance. I'd watch 4-hour cloud. I'd be careful in March, like Cred is saying. Seasonality is poor for that. Save for me. I'm just gonna save some ammunition for Q2, which has historically been insane across the board. Maybe start accumulating some garbage tier alts like Zcash so that I can curve on some idiots who are community members in Q2 and dump on them. Stuff like that is what I'm looking for. Just like bottom of the barrel, absolute 50% off sales on altcoins is what I'd be looking for here.
And Josh, you agreed with Cred on the March seasonality, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. March is bad. September's bad. Q2's good. Q4 good. ETH has one good quarter left, which is Q2, and then historically Q3, Q4 for ETH and ETH BTC are both pretty bad. So we'll see if that changes this year, but it's hard to bet against seasonality when everybody's looking at it now, I think.
Doesn't help.
I can go next. I am mostly interested in, do we get a real response off of DeFi blue chips? And I'll use Aave as my kind of primary example. This was all pretty clean if you look at it and historically. After it tested that 420 level twice, when it broke down from it, it went all the way back to exactly that 312. I had tweeted at some point back then, I was like, maybe I'll just go all in Aave at 300. Obviously, I should have been doing that and then banking my 20 or 30% today. I'm not terribly bearish until 420. If Aave can recapture 420, I find that very bullish for what we might see out of DeFi. And if you look at most other DeFi stuff, it's pretty similar, although there are some strengths and in the bunch. Like Sushi, maybe it hurt if you're in there, but overall this wasn't very painful, right? So maybe there's a difference in strength between which ones you're looking at. And then there's some in this landscape there, it's just not quite as easy as it was, just buy whatever, in terms of what's performing. I can't find it right now because I'm blind and my watch list has become too large. But Solana was the one I was going to pull up. It's some the dips are minuscule. You have very small amounts of time to buy them and then off they go. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm watching, is the performance of the DeFi blue chips to see if they can recapture levels for continuation and not just be bearish retests.
Aave USD's got a Adam and Eve on it right now, so that looks pretty good. I'll say 1 inch too. 1 inch had this weird floor at 450. So if 1 inch can break back above 450,
I treat 1 inch kind of like the Chinese yuan. I don't take it very seriously in terms of the chart. It's like,
Bro, that's all we do is chart.
but they just that team is like they're doing so much random stuff.
You're talking about hash masked indices, so you can't believe in the 1 inch chart? Come on.
But they did like another airdrop and some other weird crap, and I don't know. I don't trust the 1 inch team very much. Sorry.
All right.
Playing the game.
They are playing the game. That's true.
All right. Well, Don, can you pull that ETH chart back up?
The ETH BTC one.
Yeah, ETH BTC. I'm stuck on one screen. What I think is really interesting about ETH BTC is that scenario that you said would just be horrible to see, because we were both looking for strength above, 0.038, 0.04.
Yeah.
That's the bullish case, right? That's momentum trade. It's the easiest trade to take. What would be horrible is as you were saying the other week, is exactly what happened, right? We just dripped down. There is no bullish reclaim. I think there's like a really interesting spot that, even though I'm not going to buy this blind, this is the chart I'm probably going to look at every single day this week. There's this culmination of a few narratives. If Vitalik did kind of just solve this scaling thing, if the Qi and all that minting was clogging up the network, I think that could start a bullish narrative. And I'm also seeing a ton more talk about EIP 1559. I don't know when that goes live. I should know more info about that. But I just think there's been so much focus on, like, so much money pouring into Solana and AVAX and, you know, every other layer one because ETH can't scale. If all of a sudden, like, some money and some mind share gets behind, well, you know, maybe we solved it. Maybe we can push off scaling. Maybe scaling's around the corner. That could propel ETH to 0.038, 0.04. So I'm still looking for the same setup. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little more optimistic about it this week. It's something to watch for sure.
Well, given my overweightness in the Ethereum landscape, I applaud your bullishness. It keeps like
optimism.
It keeps pounding through my levels, so it's depressing me. But I'm convinced, not just of what you said, 0.038, 0.04. I think we'll get that 0.055 tag at some point.
That's what I'm saying. That's the trade. Like, you just have to find the setup, but it's gonna happen.
I mean, this is not bad support, right? If you're looking at it. So if that goes, I'd be very worried. But I mean, that's like the last one that you have before. It's just, yeah.
Can you make that a little bit wider? You made that pretty thin right there. Let's deepen that.
We need.
Yeah, there we go. Dark green, maybe dark green.
Hopium to the bottom of that wick.
Yeah, that'll help out.
Yeah. There we go.
One of the things I found interesting is that, like, Vitalik just makes some proposal and it's like it has this, I don't know, 70% effect on gas. And I wonder if there's other quasi low-hanging fruit.
That's what I mean.
Some specifically under the control of projects like, like Uniswap moving to layer 2, that all of a sudden it's like, bam, most of this stuff is solved, and suck it bears, or suck it other competing layer 1s. And yeah, I think things can change relatively quickly with Ethereum. And a lot of those changes, what you talked about, 1559 is a monetary change, not so much a scaling one, but it's very, very bullish if it goes through.
That's what I mean. Both those together would just be massive.
Yeah, so if you have the monetary change and the scaling adjustments all happening with kind of whichever upgrade it is, the summer upgrade, London or Berlin or whatever they are.
It's the 2017 summer upgrade that we're still waiting on, 2021.
Yeah, seriously. That would be freaking great, It would be a bullish impetus for Ethereum that'll probably start getting priced in well before it occurs, if the market's bullish at all.
We'll see. I hope it is.
All right, why don't we leave it there? It's 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. Depends on what time zone you're in. What time is it, Cred? You're in the official time zone.
It is 5 o'clock.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Luke, you want to roll us out?
5 o'clock. That's the weekly open. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. YouTube, if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, appreciate you guys stopping by. We do this every single week at 5 o'clock. No, I should say 4 o'clock UTC, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, breaking down some themes, some charts, what we're looking at to trade at the weekly open. That's all we got.
And don't forget to go to weeklyopen.com/Blockfolio. Thanks to Blockfolio for being our partner for this show. Go to weeklyopen.com and subscribe to YouTube. Talk to you later.
See you guys next week.